Mining
sung
technicians.
in my dad's church. I remember hearing it sung during the protests that took place with Martin Luther King. It's a part of our American heritage. And I would like very much for you to join me in singing We Shall Overcome.
Oh, lovely.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall oh, we shall overcome. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk. And someday, last course, we'll live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. Oh, and someday.
Please be seated. I always like the second week of February. This week includes two of my favorites, Lincoln's birthday and Valentine's Day. Each year, I reflect on some of my favorite quotes from Abraham Lincoln. Here are a few of them. Whatever you are, be a good one. Most folks are happy as they are as happy as they make up their minds to be. One that I really liked, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Most of us could benefit from that. Don't worry when you are not recognized, but strive to be worthy of recognition. Another, I have been driven to my knees many times by the overwhelming conviction that I have nowhere else to go. And finally, in the end, it's not the years of your life that count. It is the life in your years. So the reason I like Valentine's Day is not for the chocolate or the flowers or the romance themes. I like to think that this holiday does not have to revolve around gifts. I think it's really focused on gratitude and kindness, such as is demonstrated when young elementary kids thoughtfully make handmade cards for the kids in their class. They're learning to express appreciation for another. That is what this holiday can all be about. So if you've not given a card or candy to anyone this week, I encourage you to call a friend anytime and share your gratitude for having them in your life. It may surprise them, but that's okay. It will also inspire them to do the same for another. Amen.
Thank you, Nancy and Raymond and Ryan. Appreciate you getting us centered for our meeting today. Now, a number of Rotarians stepped up to make our meeting a great experience for you today. Our meeting reporter, Pete Delaunay, our online meeting host, Kim Moore, our greeters, Jared Gross and Tabitha Claus, and standing in at the check-in table while Mary Goldie is on vacation were Jeff Parker and Jen Gladish. Thank you all. Okay, I have some exciting news that I want to share with you today. Our search committee has completed the process and made a selection for our club director. So we started with a fantastic pool of candidates. We had a robust interview process, and in the end, a unanimous decision was made for the best person for the job. I am very pleased to announce we have selected our very own Mary Goldie to serve as club director. I'm so sad that she's on vacation right now and not here to hear this. But her vacation was long planned, but she is aware of the news. I was able to talk with her before she left, and she'll be back with us on Zoom for next week's meeting. So you can congratulate her in the chat at that point. But I am going to have her at our first meeting of March 1st, we'll have her come up to the podium and say a few words with us then. Okay, I'd like to introduce our guests who have joined us here today. When I call your name, if you would please stand so that we can recognize all of our guests. We have Maddie Vonhoff, a prospective member. Maddie. We have a few guests of Ken Grant. We have Yogi Hudson, Brooke Adams, and Janet Christopher. And then we have a guest of Jen Gladish, Patrick Kennedy. We have a guest of Nicole Klein, Rick McPherson. And then another prospective member and guest of Fedva Dickman is Andrea Black. Andrea, all right, can I have a round of applause for everyone? And I should have said this, did I miss any guests? If I did miss a guest, would you please stand so we can recognize you as well? Stephen? Oh, excellent, welcome. All right, thank you. We're glad to have you here. All right, now each month we recognize our members celebrating the anniversary year of having joined Seattle 4 Rotary. Please enjoy this month's anniversary video.
Might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sometimes you feel you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care if it's by the way. Because I'm happy I'm alone. If you feel like a room just out of room. Because I'm happy I'm alone. If you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy I'm alone. If you feel like that's what you want. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Give me all you got, don't hold it back. Warrior, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy I'm alone. If you feel like a room just out of room. Because I'm happy I'm alone. If you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy I'm alone. If you feel like that's what you want. Bring me down, pain money. Bring me down, the love is too high. Bring me down, can't bring me down. I said, take down. Bring me down, can't bring me down. The love is too.
All right, congratulations to all the anniversaries. That video never gets old for me. I love that. I would like to call to the stage now Jan Levy, so that I can present her with her 10-year anniversary pin.
Thank you. Thank you. 10 years, that doesn't seem possible. So most of you know our next guest, David Bobanek, the Executive Director of Harvest Against Hunger, or HA, for more than 20 years. When I asked David for his bio, he told me, everybody knows me. Just talk about your experience as a new HA board member. Sorry, Dave. I have to say a few things about you first. For those of you who know me, you'll know that I don't say this lightly. David Bobanek is the perfect example of what a servant leader looks like. He constantly puts other people's agendas before his own. And from my observation as a new board member, he makes sure that the board and staff have what they need to do their jobs without getting in the way. He can be found doing very mundane tasks like taking out the trash or schlepping boxes of wine somewhere, just as often as he can be found in very important meetings with really diverse sets of collaborators with Harvest Against Hunger. He is dedicated to serving HA's mission first, and he constantly looks for new ways to innovate. When I first retired, I was given some really good advice, which was say no to everyone and everything for at least a year. And I took that advice to heart. I said no a lot. But when I was finally ready to get back into board service, I was asked to join HA's board. So I did a little bit of investigation before I said yes. Everyone I spoke with who is in the food insecurity world holds Harvest Against Hunger in extremely high regard, especially Dave. Thanks to David, the organization is seen as a leader not only in getting nearly 500 million, that's billion, healthy servings of fresh produce into the hands of those who need it, but in creating innovative, award-winning programs like Harvest Vista and Farm to Community. In fact, David was recently named a food waste innovator by ReFed, which is a national nonprofit dedicated to ending food waste in the United States. So please join me in welcoming our very own David Bobanek to let us know what's going on at HA.
Yeah.
Jan, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. That was terrific. I would like you to come with me every presentation I do, please. That would. Gentlemen in the back, do we have a clicker? We don't have a clicker. We didn't come up with a signal to how the slides are going to get advanced. So this could be a little, what do you want to, that? Every time. I'm trying to disabuse Jan of the but thank you, Jan, so much for the lovely introduction. And thank you for being a board member of the organization. You bring so much to the board, to the organization, and to our work. And I'd also like to thank on Zoom, likely David Siebert, who has been a board member with Harvest Against Hunger for many years. If you know David, you know what a quality individual and board member he can be, and certainly is with Harvest Against Hunger. So let's go to the next slide. Really, sort of a guiding principle for our organization has been providing healthy food to people in need builds healthier communities. And many of you know one part of our work, and let's go to the next slide here. One part of our work is to get those truckload-sized donations into hunger relief organizations. And we're doing 2 of those today after a lot of scrambling around late yesterday afternoon. But that's really just a piece of the work that we do. And so our approach to working in communities is to really think about what is that first step that we're making in a community to help them build a better food system. So who in the room can tell me what is on the screen? Begins with an R. It's a ripple, right? Thank you. Next slide. So this is really the way we see our work, and we think of it in terms of the ripple effect that we are having in investments that we make in communities, with organizations, with individuals, and those collaborative partnerships that we're making. So a gradually spreading effect or influence, a situation in which one event produces effects which spread and produce further effects. And so when we think about our programming, we do a number of different lines of business, all of which are interconnected, and we try to make those available as appropriate in those communities where we're developing our partnerships. Next slide. So these are our lines of business that I was talking about. Core work, everybody's familiar with, getting truckload size donations into the system. Our Harvest Vista program places AmeriCorps Vista at hunger relief organizations and other community organizations to build systems. That's here in Washington State and 6 other states around the country. Capacity building is what we do to help those organizations where we get the produce in, especially at that kind of farthest level in the rural programs where they don't have a lot of resources, help them to build the capacity to do their work better, connecting and collaborating. And that's something we do every day. We kind of live and breathe that. But today I'm going to talk about farm to community. And so if we go to the next slide, farm to community, let's go to the next slide after this. Jan's already talked about the 500 billion healthy servings that we've provided. So whatever in your mind's eye is 500 billion apples, that's what we've done so far. So farm to community is, go ahead with the next slide, is a program where we establish contracted relationships and help organizations to establish those relationships with local growers. That literally means having money that goes from that organization to a local grower to buy specific produce that is then distributed. So one of the things that we're really cognizant of is that at hunger relief organizations, having access to healthy, nutritious produce is so important, especially for people that are going through a point of crisis or a period of crisis in their lives. So we have focused for the past couple of years to develop this program where we actually are, through sponsors like Washington State Department of Agriculture, King Conservation District, and others, we're providing funding to those organizations so that they can connect with local growers, support local small-scale growers, and get produce that they otherwise wouldn't have available that is culturally familiar, nutrient dense, into the hands of people that need help. So this is the way our farm to community program looked at the beginning of 2021. And take a look at the number, let's go back one. Take a look at the number of different sites. We have 3 different baskets of work under that. Now click forward one, look how that multiplied. So what that represents is in hunger relief, there are now a bunch of new programs that typically before the pandemic didn't see themselves as hunger relief organizations. They could have been providing educational services. They could have been providing support for certain communities like East African support communities or things like that. Suddenly through the pandemic, they found themselves providing food assistance and hunger relief work as part of their lines of business. So our program, that program is able to scale to support those different organizations. And we also scaled in the types of growers that we're working with. So this is out in Walla Walla, Washington, looks like a traditional small scale grower. This is Chandler. He was one of the first farmers we worked with. Next slide. Now we're also starting to see younger farmers that are participating in this. So this farm to community program helps them to get their farms up and running and started, teaches them how to do wholesaling and to be successful so they can get involved in wholesale sales and they can have a more sustainable program. Next slide. And what we're really excited about now is the engagement with BIPOC and traditionally underrepresented growers and communities. So this is Bill Thorne, and he's distributing some food to North Seattle Helpline. Bill has contracts with North Seattle Helpline and a couple of other organizations that helps him to build a sustainable farming program that he will continue to grow and thrive well into the future. So the next slide, and this is down in South King County. This is with the South King County Food Coalition in Maple Valley. This is a gentleman who is part of a community that is East African growers. that are working down at Horse Neck Farms. And they're working on these tiny little lots, an acre at a time, but they're growing things that they're bringing those traditions from home. And so they're growing things that are familiar to a lot of those East and West African communities that are in South King County that are turning to hunger relief organizations and others. So the next slide. And this is one of the Hmong farmers from South King County as well. This is a delivery at Des Moines Food Bank. We're so excited that this program is helping us to connect those partners within the communities to help take care of traditionally underserved people. So folks that the Hunger Relief Organization as it's set up now is not effective in reaching. So let's go to the next slide. One of the other things that's been really interesting to see is this is Rainier Beach Action Coalition. They're not a traditional food bank, but this is a program that started up through the pandemic as a way to reach out into the community. It's a pop-up hunger relief, it's pop-up food bank basically, but they provide a lot of other support. And we're able to work with Rainier Beach Action Coalition. Go ahead and go to the next slide to bring in this beautiful produce that is made available in a unique and different way to those people that need hunger relief. So the nutrient density off the charts, cultural familiarity, excellent. So this program has really helped us to kind of redefine what hunger relief means in our communities. Let's go to the next slide. So again, thinking about how we as an organization are creating and causing a positive ripple effect with those programs that we partner with, so that it's helping to build healthier food systems, not only here in the Seattle area, but across the state. Next slide, please. Again, focusing on those healthy food systems, providing that healthy food is going to build healthier communities. And the next slide. So I'll end with this. This is why we do the work, right? I loved the idea that thinking about what this little guy, this was at Maple Valley Food Bank, where that produce was being delivered that we saw a couple of slides ago. What's his ripple effect going to be? How can we help him to achieve everything that he is capable of in his life? So finding ways to get nutritious produce into those programs where little guys like this are getting food to help themselves and their families get to that next step is really critically important. That's why we do this work. And that's why your support that we've received for so many years from this group has been so important and so well invested in the community. Thank you all so much. We've got one more slide, and that's just my contact information, or you can just grab me at a meeting. Thank you all very much. Appreciate the opportunity. And so now it is my privilege to welcome Mark Wright and John Oppenheimer, CEO of Columbia Hospitality, to the stage for our main program. Mark, thanks, everybody.
David, thank you. It's great to see everybody. I was going to write a long introduction about John Oppenheimer. I think a lot of you know who John is. So I'm going to spare you that, because we're going to get into a lot of who John is and what he's done in the body of our presentation today. I did call a few people. I spent 35 years as a journalist, so I know how to find dirt on people. So I made some calls this morning. The good news is I couldn't find any dirt on this guy. I have some friends who know John very well, and they described him as kind, compassionate, thoughtful, present, full of positive energy, full of respect for everyone that he deals with. And I think that's the introduction that I want to give for John Oppenheimer. He's going to give about 5 minutes of comments, and then we're going to sit down and have a little fireside chat. So please welcome John Oppenheimer.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I'm just going to give some quick comments because I'm looking forward to our conversation, Mark. It's just fantastic. This is my second time to be at Rotary, and it is fantastic to be here and see some great friends and really great people that have been an inspiration to me and my journey in Columbia Hospitality. I'll give you a quick overview of Columbia Hospitality, and then Mark and I will sit down. Columbia Hospitality was started we started it 26 years ago, kind of by accident. I had another company called CRG Events that planned corporate events around the country, around the world. And the Port of Seattle was considering building a conference center that's now called Bell Harbor International Conference Center. How many of you have heard of Bell Harbor? Good, that's very good news. They were considering building Bell Harbor and hired us as consultants just to offer an event planner's perspective. And we it was a tiny little consulting assignment. Just the port was asking, what's an event planner look for in a conference center? So we did that assignment. And then they went out to bid for an operator, and we submitted a proposal to run Bell Harbor based on no experience. In fact, I had a slide that said, why should you hire us? And the next slide said, because we've never done this before, which was a little bit of a risk with a government agency. But they hired us, and it was a 20-year contract if we met certain benchmarks. And our pitch to the Port Authority was, if you hire us, I'll form a separate company that'll be designed around running this conference center. And nobody understands the customer like we do, because at the time we had done events in 28 countries and about 4,400 venues. So our pitch was, we understand the customer's perspective and will be tailor-made for Bell Harbor. And we hope we've never forgotten the importance of understanding that customer's perspective. And that was the beginning of our company. That contract was, we had to make certain benchmarks, and we had it for 20 years, and then they went out to bid as they had to do. And so we were up for renewal. And at that point, we had added other facilities, and we would have survived without Bell Harbor financially. I don't think we would have survived emotionally, because it was our baby. And so we tackled that. And some of you in this room were helpful to us, like it was the first contract we had ever gone after. And I'm happy to report that 3 years ago, it was renewed for another 20 years. And so that was the beginning. So we owe a lot to the Port of Seattle. And we've always operated under the premise that we celebrate. Mark and I were talking about the importance of team members right before lunch. We celebrate the team. It all starts with the team. I think that's true in any business, but it's especially true in the hospitality business. If people love what they're doing when you check in at a hotel, if people love going to work every day, that's transparent to the guest. And so our number one focus is actually now not the guest, it's the team member. And how can we create an extraordinary experience for the team member that translates to an extraordinary experience for the guests? And then every company, and you've probably had a million speakers that talk about living by their values. We just are emphatic about it. It's pasted. If you come to our office, you'll see our values all over our room. Our values are accountability, enthusiasm, honesty, creativity, respect, and inclusion. And that becomes the litmus test for every decision we make, which makes decisions pretty darn easy if you look at it through that filter. And we haven't changed those values, and we live and breathe it. Many of us carry little cards with it on it. And then we celebrate our spirit by having also plastered all over our walls, OMG. We have a OMG spirit, and that stands for own the values, make it fun, and get it done. And so we have OMG awards and OMG filters for a lot of the decisions we make. And today, after that first beginning of 27 years ago, we sort of slowly, or 26 years ago, we sort of slowly added properties. But our biggest growth, and Mark and I will get into this if you're interested in it, has been in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, we had 37 properties that we managed. And today we manage 98 properties in 11 states and in 52 communities. So thanks to the support of this community, because this is where it began, we've really been able to provide growth and opportunities for people. And the best part about this business is the team members that I get to work with every day. 4 of them you met: Janet, our chief marketing officer, who's here, Brooke, and Yogi and Ken, one of your leaders, are a big part of the leadership of our company. Yogi Hudson, who used to be the general manager of this hotel and the Sheraton and the W and half the hotels in the state of Washington, joined us 5 years ago. And that was really a pivotal point in our company going to the next level. So Yogi, thank you for that very, very much. And it's great to be here at Rotary 4, so thank you. very much.
This is so funny and awesome because I was a hotel restaurant manager at Washington State University. Before I nearly flunked out of college. So I think, you know, I'm not disparaging your industry, but I'm saying this is a full circle moment for me. Because I feel like this was meant to be.
Well, you should have stuck with, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you should have stuck with it. One of my pivotal points of my career was when I was out to dinner with our son and his buddy, they were 12 years old, so it's not a recent story. And I said to his buddy, Gabe, I said, what do you want to do when you grow up, Gabe? And Gabe looked at me as serious as you can be and said, I think I want to go into the hospitality business like you, John. And I said, that's great, Gabe, why? And he said, because you're not be very smart. He was 12. Sorry to interrupt you, but I couldn't resist.
That is awesome. I want to go back in time. You're in between 8th and 9th grade. You think I need a summer job. They don't have bell caps at the Boise airport, right? But you and your buddy decide to go to the airport and ask for jobs.
Right.
What in the world? What were you thinking? How did that come about?
Oh, you should be in journalism. You did a little research. That was sort of my first job. And when I think I first realized the importance of service, and how service, the better the service, the better the compensation. I grew up in Boise, Idaho, and we went to the Boise airport, me and my buddy Gary, and said, you know, we've been to other cities and they have sky caps and we would love to be your sky cap. And they said, well, we're not going to pay you, kids. And we said, that's okay. Will you give us a uniform? Because if we had a uniform, it would help us. And so for 2 summers, we were sky caps in the Boise, Idaho airport, first sky caps they ever had. And our only compensation was gratuities. And so we hustled as much as we could. And in Boise, Idaho, it took a little customer training because we'd run up and people would be like, you're not stealing our suitcase.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that your wife, her dad and your dad were friends back in the day.
Yes.
And in my research, you said that Deanna ignored you for many years, and it took literally 7 years to convince her to marry you. I just find it fascinating that your families were connected from the time you were kids.
Yes. I've got to figure out where you did your research. Yes, Deanna and I met, some of you know Deanna, she's by far the brighter half of our family. And we met, I remember this better than she did. We met as seniors in high school. We were both pages in the state legislature and we were at a party and I walked up to her and said, you know, our dads are very good friends, which is probably the basis we could be very good friends. And she said, right, and walked away. And kind of ignored me, or not kind of. And then we ended up at the same University of Puget Sound, where Carl Benke served on the board for a number of years. And that's when I began to stalk her. This may be more information than anyone needs, and she'll be upset I shared it. But we went out during college until she broke up with me, which was devastating at a small school. After 2 years, she decided she wanted to meet other guys, and she broke up with me on a Wednesday at small school. So by Friday, she had a date and it was all over the school with some jerk named Bruce. And when Bruce came back, brought her back.
This is getting good.
Yeah. When Bruce brought her back to the dorm, yeah, she'll love it. I shared this. That Friday night at 10:15, I was waiting on the steps and I said, thank you, Bruce, that'll be all. And I think she looked at me and thought, all right, I'll get back together with them.
Wow, that's sort of like the equivalent of may I cut in.
Right, yeah, yeah.
I love it. You have a tenacity about you, John. The story about how you founded the company to run Bell Harbor is just amazing. I'm really interested in the growth that your company has seen over the past 5 years. I think a lot of industries, that's sort of a survival mechanism, but it seems like for your company and setup companies, it's more than that. It's just growing exponentially. Tell me, is that part of an overall plan or what's happening?
It's provided, it is part of an overall plan in the sense of providing opportunities for as much as we can for team members and for all of us to grow and provide extraordinary service. Our properties are all owned by different groups of people. And so providing opportunities for them and for the owners from an investment point of view and for the team members from a point of view of providing extraordinary service to one another, as well as to the guests that visit us. And we've grown really based on reputation. And we've grown, I think another reason we've grown that's applicable with all of you, because many of you are such amazing examples of this, is the importance of getting involved in the community and giving back to a community. And there's so many of you that are the role models to people like me to get involved in the community, and everyone wins.
Yeah. Let's talk about the pandemic and its impact on hospitality. I mean, those businesses where we had to be face to face with people really got hit hard. How did the pandemic affect your holdings, your strategy, and how are you emerging from it?
It was the scariest for all of us, right? The scariest and most frustrating roller coaster ride that one can possibly imagine, because it's not like we could sit around and say, what could we have done better? It wasn't anyone's fault. And so it's not like business went, we also are partners in a company called Cruise. It's a very grandiose name, but it's called Cruise Terminals of America. And Cruise Terminals of America operates the 2 cruise terminals here in Seattle. And I've never been involved in a business that went from really, really healthy business to zero. I mean, zero. And so what we did was said, how can we maintain as many team members as possible? And we did that for a while, and then we couldn't. And then it was time we had to make furloughs first and then layoffs second. And one of my proudest moments, Mark, is in 5 days, we created what was called the Columbia Hospitality Foundation, which we didn't have. And we invited team members to contribute to it through a nonprofit contribution. It was through an organization in DC called Global Impact that administered it. And team members that had lost their jobs could apply for grants. And they weren't huge grants, but they were grants of maybe $500 or $1,000 or $1,500 to go buy some groceries or help with childcare. And that was a great outcome of the pandemic because it still exists. We still do it. And a lot of our team members contribute to it. So that was a big plus. And another thing is we said, what other businesses can we get into? And so we created a call center business where we contracted out with a third party based in Dallas. When you called Salish Lodge, for example, you might be talking to the call center in Dallas. And we said, we can do that. We're going to bring that in-house to employ more people during the pandemic. We did that. Then we started marketing it, and we provide today 29 jobs for call center folks, and we're the call center for some of our competitors. We may not run the facility, but if you call and ask for a pillow, you might be. If you call and ask for a pillow in Leavenworth, Washington, you think you're talking to the front desk, and you're talking to the waterfront in Seattle, Washington. So there were some positives of the pandemic, and it also created great teamwork. We all put our heads together.
A big part of the shutdown was obviously business travel. I didn't realize that Amazon alone books something like, hundreds of thousands of rooms a year in the city of Seattle. Has business travel come back? And what part of your business model is that today?
Business meetings have come back more than business travel. And what I mean by that is we're seeing more and more meetings where companies are saying, we've been remote, we've been all over the place. We need to get our group an internal meeting together. And so that's been very good for Bell Harbor. Bell Harbor had the best October, November, and December it's ever had. And those were internal meetings where companies said, we need to meet and all get in the same room for 3 days and kind of relaunch ourselves. So business meetings have come back. Business travel, meaning people sleeping in the hotel rooms, is more of a roller coaster and is not coming back to the same degree and worries us a little bit, Leisure travel, on the other hand, that is coming back. And people are saying, how do I'm ready to go. So our properties, particularly in rural areas, we have 4 hotels in Montana, we have 1 in Sun Valley. Salish here, the Lodge at St. Edward, where people can go have a great dining experience, have a spa experience. That has come back.
So the internet, I'm in the process of trying to book a vacation for spring break.
Oh,
The
it can
internet-
help.
Well, that's not where I was going, but yes, let's follow up after the meeting. It's really confusing. There are so many internet websites that book hotel rooms now. My question is, John, you know, the internet almost overnight killed the taxi cab industry by creating Uber and Lyft. So to what extent is the internet replacing what you guys traditionally did in terms of booking rooms? Because now you've got moms and pops all over the world that are renting out their rooms.
Right.
Is this helping your industry? Is it supplanting some of the business you used to get? Or how does the internet play?
Yes, it's definitely changing. The largest hotel company in the world owns no hotels, operates no hotels. It's Airbnb. And so it does play, it's a new competitor on the market. Now, from a bias perspective, it's a little bit of a wild card because all of us have had Airbnb experiences that have been terrific, and others have had experiences that are a little dicey. So for the business traveler, where they want to go into a hotel, have a concierge help them, have a front desk help them, be able to order room service and and not think about it and have cleanliness. The hotel business couldn't be stronger. For family vacations that want to rent a home, that's a little bit more dicey, and the homes make a lot of sense in a lot of cases for that. But on the other hand, we've all heard stories where you check in and the owner is next door and they're coming over because they don't want Tommy bicycling in front. Or I heard the other day, there was no room in the closet because all their clothes were there. And that's a little awkward. So yeah, it's affected our business.
I've always been intrigued, John, that when companies scale up, like you look at an Amazon or a Starbucks, how you preserve the DNA of the company that you started in the first place. So as you've merged with other companies, you've created new companies, how do you make sure that the company that John Oppenheimer started in the mid-90s is the same one that exists today?
It's that is if someone says what keeps you up at night, it's not the pandemic, it's not the travel, it's not the travel changes, it's how do you keep the culture? And part of that's selfish because it is so much fun to have this sort of family spirit. And we have just under 3,000 team members. And it used to be pretty easy when we had a few hundred. I interviewed every single front desk person 7 years ago. Now I don't do that. And so how you keep that, what we try to do is be a larger company, and we're still tiny compared to the big boys like this. But what we try to do is keep a family spirit by remembering to celebrate the little things, whether it be birthdays or anniversaries or surgeries that went well, by celebrating people that have had extraordinary success at the property, and by spending time, and all of us that are here today spend time out at our properties, getting to know one another, and not just getting to know one another on a business front, but really who they are and what are their hopes and dreams and how can we work together. That gets that, and then back to our values that I talked about earlier, that we just reemphasize. That is a team sport. And like they say at the airport, if you see something, say something, and we encourage everyone to be focused on that.
That's amazing that up until 7 years ago, you're interviewing
Yeah.
everyone. I think, you know, I've been asked to sit in on job interviews when we're evaluating people before, and I have to be honest, I just haven't figured that out. I feel like people can put on a good face. I feel like I'm not a good detector of liars. When you're interviewing somebody, can you give me like sort of like how do you know if that person's right or not for the job? Does it happen in the interview or does it happen in the discovery process?
It happens more in the interview, and it's a two-way street. It's what kind of questions do they have? And we look at interviews in our organization as we're being interviewed. and what's important to the candidate, what's important, what questions do they have? And what's going to make this just golden for them? And one of the questions I ask is I say to someone, you've had amazing, because usually they have, you've had amazing positions, you've had amazing jobs. What's going to make this the wildest best ever for you? What's going to make this the best decision you've ever made? To learn about them. And you don't hit 100%. But we're also believers in open communication. And if it's not right for them, it's probably, if it's not right for us, it's probably not right for them. But no, it's hard. I don't have a secret answer to that, other than having a great time in interviews. So I do some wacko stuff in interviews. And
For example,
yeah, our HR people don't like some of this stuff. I mean, because like all of you, right? We've spent years interviewing massive people. And so the other day I interviewed a friend of a friend that ended up joining us. He was looking for a position at night while he was at the UW. And we took pictures of him, and I framed like 8 of them. And when he walked into my office, there were 8 pictures of him. And I just wanted to see how he handled it and have some fun with it. It was personal entertainment. So we had to hire him, or otherwise he would be,
you won't believe what they did.
yeah, right.
So your wife, Deanna, correct me if I'm wrong, but she's now the chair of the board for IHG, which is a massive hotel company based in London. I'd love to be a fly on the wall. What do you guys talk about, like over dinner, like mergers? Like, how was your day? Well,
Yeah,
we bought
right.
30 companies today, or
Yeah.
30 properties.
That's only been since September. And that's been one of the most fun things in our 38. We've been married 38 years. We had that little Bruce incident 40-some years ago. But that my wife has been on a lot of big corporate boards, but most of them are centered around financial services. And now she's in the hospitality business. And it is so great because she's really, I mean, she used to send me when we'd go on vacation a day early, because my favorite thing to do on a vacation was go look at hotels. And now she's interested in that too. And Yogi hit it on he asked me one day how long I'd been in the business when it was announced about Deanna, how long I'd been in the business. And I said, about 27 years. And he said, yeah, I've been in it longer than that. And your wife just became 6,000 times more important than either of us.
6,000 properties, right?
That's what they have.
IHG, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I read an article from 2014 that said on your bucket list, get this, on your bucket list was going to Chick-fil-A.
That's so stupid to say. Yes.
Have you gone?
Yeah, one time.
Okay.
And I got a nice note from Chick-fil-A. That was just a stupid answer. They
Okay.
said, what have you not done that you'd like to do? And I said, go to a Chick-fil-A.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was sort of an awkward question on my part, so I apologize.
They're pretty
for
good.
that. John, I want to make sure we have a few minutes for Q&A from the audience. I'd love to open it up to the floor. I know that a lot of you probably have some questions for John, so just raise your hand and Jan will come around.
Oh, dear.
Hey,
Uh-oh.
hi, John. I don't have a question. I just have a statement for you. It's nice to be back at Rotary. I'm Bernie and I am in service of the Fifth Avenue Theater, and John's on our board. And I have learned so much from you, John, as far as how to take care of people, and your community involvement is the high bar for all of us. And just on behalf of the Fifth, I want to say a grateful theater salutes you and your
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know that, thank you. You know, the Fifth Avenue, we should applaud Bernie because the Fifth Avenue brings 300,000 people downtown after 5 o'clock. And that's one of the things that's going to make downtown Seattle great. So back at you.
We have a question from Jeff, but I just need to tell you, John, as someone who had to go to the Kitsap Conference Center every year, Leadership Tomorrow for I don't know how many years, they revere you.
No, thank you.
They really revere you. They love you over there and they do a great job if anybody needs a convention site. Jeff.
Thanks for being here with us today. You know, you're so well loved. I'm just wondering if you're participating in Rotary recently and looking for a club to join.
Yeah.
Because, you might fit in here and, we've loosened up the attendance
Wow.
requirements a bit. So if you're traveling,
Thank you.
it could work. But a serious question in addition to my first request is what's on the horizon? What are you thinking about for the next 2 or 3 years for your business? Are you going to plateau for a while and sort of get your hands around the growth you've had, or are you going to try and push the growth a little bit further? Thanks.
Thank you. I will continue to grow. We'll continue to grow in each of our verticals. I talked a lot about hotels, but we also manage through Columbia Hospitality Residential 23 buildings, many of which are downtown. We have 4,000 doors that we manage. We're going to keep growing that business. We'll keep growing the golf course business. We have 8 golf courses we manage. So I think our goal is to keep growing, but to diversify those verticals. And our second goal, or my second goal, is to continue to delegate more. Because I've discovered the less I'm involved, the better the business seems to do. And so we have some great people. And so that's the second goal, but we're going to grow, but not just for growth's sake.
All right, last
Eric,
question.
that's the last question.
Hi, John. I'm Eric. I'm the CEO of Seafair. And so we're looking forward to the waterfront opening up in 2024 and 2025 and wondering what your baby is right there in the center of everything happening down there. What is your company going to do new, different along the waterfront area?
Well, yeah, that's going to be spectacular for Seattle. Bob Davidson's here from the aquarium. The aquarium is going to change the waterfront as much as the viaduct going away. And it's going to be fantastic for selling meetings on the waterfront to say, come to Bell Harbor, stay on the waterfront, or stay down here and we'll transport you. Go to the aquarium, walk along the amazing new waterfront. So we're trying to keep up with that. And the Port of Seattle committed, and this was during the pandemic, which turned out to be good, unplanned, but good timing. We just finished about 6 months ago, a $15 million renovation of Bell Harbor in order to keep up with the rest of the waterfront. So if you haven't been there, the Bell Harbor is a new and improved building in order to keep up with the waterfront, Eric.
All right. John Oppenheimer, let's give a big
Thank you.
round of applause. Thank you for the
Thank
leader you are.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks. That was fun. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mark and John. We so appreciate you being here. And John, in recognition of the generosity of your time today, Seattle 4 has contributed to none other than Harvest Against Hunger, which provides healthy meal components to food banks, as you have heard. And so 600 servings of healthy produce have been given in your name. So thank you for that. I'd like to also say thank you to Jan and Ken for fielding questions from our members. And a big thank you to our longtime Rotary supporter and gold sponsor, Bob Alexander. All right, now we are going to bring up our VP of membership, Nicole Klein, who will share the events coming up where Rotary members and guests can engage in the community and with each other, of course. And I wanted to just mention that last week, John Steckler called on everyone to be spontaneous and go to the Seattle University basketball game, which Nicole and I were there. A number of other folks, we had about 20 people that went to the game and had a behind the scenes tour of Climate Pledge Arena. It's a great game, and that tour was amazing. I've done it a number of times, but I learned something new every time. So take advantage of these great opportunities. We get that personal touch. Oftentimes it is a Rotary member who gives us something that is unique because we are a part of Rotary. And then after Nicole, we're going to have our Prince of Programs, Ken Grant, will share the upcoming speakers and programs in the next few weeks. Nicole.
Okay, so I'm going to go off script really quick because I can't attend this, but you should. On Thursday, March 16th, Puget Sound Business Journal is honoring the best family businesses of the year. So John Oppenheimer and Columbia Hospitality are among the winners. And if you've never gone, it's at the Four Seasons and it's really a wonderful event. So congratulations. The other events we're just putting in order. Upcoming, we have February 18th, A Woman of No Importance. This next slide, February 24th, Hearts and Wine. There are, thank you. There are flyers on your table if you want to grab that. This helps Harvest Against Hunger. And March 5th, we have the Seattle Opera, another arts event, and Lebanese dinner at Tenor. Am I saying that right? March 8th. And that's Fedva if she's here. So please sign up for one of those. Thank you so much.
Four months left, people, 4 months left. God, anybody here have a child or know a child? Anyone in the group? Does anybody know any children? Next week's, oh, you took the crown off, thank God. Next week is on the Zoom only. So those that are at home, we're going to join you. Our very own Linda Thompson Black. This just happened. Where's John? Not that John, the other John. Bridge. Because of John Bridge, and because of Linda Thompson Black, she's going to be doing an interview with the head of the Seattle School District. That was not easy to get. So a big applause to John. The week after that, speaking of John, but this was me, but you're going to be introducing your niece. These guys are celebrating their 110th anniversary. So 26 years is good, 110 is longer. I needed an abacus for that. 110 years of business in the past and what the next 110 years looks like in the future. So that's kind of cool. And then the week after that, so that one is at the Rainier Club. And then the week after that, we're back here. And then we're going to have a conversation with Katie Griggs, a backstage look, if you will, at the Mariners. And that whole next month, we're celebrating Women's History Month. So that'll be really fun. A lot of really good speakers. John, thank you. David, thank you. Mark, good job. Beth, back to you.
Thank you, Ken and Nicole. All right. For those of you I haven't met, my day job is with the Seattle Sports Commission. So I'd like to leave you with a few sports highlights to finish out your week. As most of you know, Coach Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 57. That was the third most watched television program of all time, showing the economic power and incredible draw of sports. Now, both men's and women's University of Washington track teams are ranked in the top 5 nationally, led by their distance runners. If you remember, I was sharing some other stories about the men's track team. Clearly, there is something special in the water over on Montlake Boulevard, because both those teams are just doing incredible. Now, WSU won the hardwood version of the Apple Cup, with Washington State's men's basketball team beating University of Washington 56-51. So a really close game. They were in Pullman, so nicely done, Cougs. And it has been also a busy week for the Seattle Sports Commission. On Monday, we announced that Seahawks legend Doug Baldwin will be honored with the Paul Allen Humanitarian Award at this year's Sports Star Award Show. And while you may be familiar with Doug's accomplishments on the field, it is his off-field contributions that are even more impressive. It's a long list, but the two that I'll mention include building the Renton Community Center, and most recently being appointed by Governor Inslee to the Washington State Clemency and Parole Board, a hugely impactful role. Now, the Sports Star event will take place in a week and a half, where we will also present Ken Griffey Jr. with the Royal Rome Sports Legend Award. So it's going to be a great event. Now, yesterday, I was part of an announcement where the Seattle World Cup Local Organizing Committee announced that Peter Tomazawa, former president of business operations for the Seattle Sounders FC, will become its new CEO and lead our host city planning efforts. This is just one of the many milestones on our World Cup journey that we will host in 2026. So I will leave you with a quote from Doug Baldwin today. He said, "The greatest tragedy for any human being is going through their entire lives believing the only perspective that matters is their own." Now, one last thing that I want to just share before we depart, Rotarian John Hojaboom has a free ticket he is offering up to see the University of Washington women's basketball game on Friday night. This game includes pregame access to a VIP reception celebrating the 50th anniversary of Title IX. John, where are you sitting? right here in the back. He's raising his hand. So if you want to claim that free ticket, go see John. Meeting adjourned.
That was interesting. Hello. Goodbye.